All right, welcome back to Cyber for Hire, the Managed Security Podcast. Once again, I'm Bradley Barth from SC Media. In the first half of our show, we talked about the challenges of conducting security at large gatherings like the Super Bowl, featuring Michael Smith at Verkara. But right now, I'd like to welcome back my co-host Ryan Morris from Morris Management Partners, because it's time for us to examine our MSSP industry and market strategy topic of the day. Presenting our big idea: in business, go broad or stay specialized with your services. The quality versus quantity debate. It's a tough call for MSSPs. Be really good at a small subset of services, which potentially limits your customer base, or become a jack of all trades, but potentially stretch your resources thin and risk the possibility that you won't be able to truly master any of your specializations. This session will hopefully help cyber service providers find a happy medium between these two outcomes by examining when it's best to stay in your comfort zone and when it's best to broaden your horizons. Ryan, as always, let's get right to the heart of the matter. This makes me think a little bit of that notion of the Peter principle, which is the thing where, somebody who's really competent at a job keeps being promoted until they reach a level that they're no longer competent anymore. So a cousin of that scenario maybe is this idea of expanding your services that you might be really good at until suddenly you find yourself out of your depth. So when do you cross that line? When do you go over that threshold? What's a telltale sign that you've expanded too much outside of your core competencies?
See, I think that is a very good point for all of us to embrace from a service provider's point of view, right? The correct answer to this question is it depends on who you ask. If I ask the business side folks, the answer is I would like to expand. I would like customer penetration. I would like to increase my portfolio of offerings such that my average revenue per unit, my ARPU, is going to be as large as possible. Expansion in existing customer accounts, according to the latest research that we've conducted in the IT channel. When you look at cybersecurity providers, if you look at top line revenue growth, 75% of top line revenue growth for MSSPs comes from expansion inside existing account relationships. 25% comes from new logos. If I talk to the business folks, the answer is deep and wide, deep and wide. Let's do as many things for our customers as we possibly can. If I talk to the technical professionals who are responsible for quality of service, the answer is, would you please stop adding things to our plate? Now, this is something that I believe it's a debate that's never going to be fully resolved, but you touched on the killer point. What is your rate of success or probability of success, right? If I'm looking backwards or forwards in any given service offering, right? I believe that the overall relationship with a customer is vulnerable to a misstep in even the smallest element of your services, right? Say I provide to you a basket of 10 complementary services in my cybersecurity offering, and I am awesome at 7 of them, and I'm okay at 2 of them, and I really am actually not good at 1 of them. What's the impact on the quality of the customer relationship, their level of satisfaction? Well, it's not the first 7 things that go swimmingly. It's not the next 2 that are, I don't know, we're working through it, we're figuring it out. It's when you drop the ball on one thing, even if it's a tiny thing, it can poison the satisfaction of the entire relationship. That threshold is mission critical to identify. It's not a point of trivia. It's a going out of business type of phenomenon where if you do not manage that effectively, you put yourself at increasing levels of risk. Doesn't mean we shouldn't expand. It means we need to expand very systematically so that we are able to do it. The first thing that you have to be able to do is to measure your success rate per service function, not just by the basket of services that you deliver to a customer.
All right, so let's play a little bit of make-believe now, Ryan. You are one of the leaders on the tech side, trying to now make a case to one of the business leaders within your organization to say, we're not ready to expand to this service yet. We need to stay specialized where we are. This is too big of a leap for us. What do you say? Make your best case.
See, I think it starts with forensics. If you do not know everything that is out there in all of your customer environments, it's going to sound like an opinion, or it's going to sound like complaining or whining or, hey, we're all busy, this is too hard. To which every VP of sales and CFO is going to say, everybody's busy, stop complaining, you need to just try harder, right? It begins with forensic data. These are our offerings. These are the customers that we deal with and the subsystems on the customer side of the aisle that are interacted with via each of the services that we have. That's an indexing thing. You can build that database. It's not that hard. But once you have that database, it gives you the ability to do a very compelling math calculation around iterative math, right? Think about it like this. The research out there is very clear that says the average end user managing their own cybersecurity infrastructure or leveraging the tools of what they are dealing with a service provider, a mid-sized organization has on average somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 60 independent tools that are deployed in their environment, right? The endpoints, the networks, all the Wi-Fi stuff, et cetera, et cetera. 50 to 60 is what the research says. If I have 10 offerings that I am providing to my customers, and I have 10 customers, that means that I have not just 10 times 10 iterative points. I have 10 times 10 times 60. Okay, that's the volume of math that we're going to need to be aware of, and it begins. Not every one of those connection points obviously produces an alert in real time, 24/7, obviously, but they are a potential input source of data and or alert in my operational environment. If I add an 11th service, that's not just increasing my offering by 10%. There is a logarithmic thing that goes on at the end user level that says, now I have to go back to each of those 10 customers and each of their 60 tools or related subsystems that they are working at. And then I have to map the implication of the 11th service onto every single one of those subsystems. Okay. What it speaks to is that adding and expanding a portfolio is not nearly as easy as, hey, I went to a trade show and I saw this killer pitch from a vendor. I picked up a pen with their logo. It was cool. And they gave me a form to fill out. So I signed up for their channel program. And I came back to my office and said, hey, guys, by the way, we now use this tool as well because I saw it out there. That is A, incredibly common, and B, incredibly destructive to the business operations of a service provider. It is chaos in math and in operations. What we need is a prior sandbox, right? Not just an operational sandbox where we can isolate things and determine what's going on, but a prior sandbox where we can deploy our potential new tools and services against a relevant data set of what our existing operational environment is, and then just see what breaks and see if it's easy, see if it's not easy. And we need to game that multiple times before we roll it out. By the way, this is a controversial piece of advice I'm about to give here. When you roll out these new items, which customers should you start with? It's a new capability. It is more value. You wouldn't have added it if it wasn't important, right? So it's an important new story. You can go back to your customers and you can say, that was a gap that you used to have. Now I can solve that problem for you. Aren't you super happy with me that I'm able to solve that problem? Should you go to your top 10 customers and roll out that new service first? Because they're your largest. They're the most integral to your financial success. They are the most likely to consume multiple services from you. It's the most ready audience, the most willing audience, the most lucrative audience. Should you go to those guys first? Hell no. let's just a piece of advice that I have given to people very many times. The first time you do anything in the real world, you will suck at it. Right? It's a fact of life. None of us, the way I describe it in colloquial terms, none of us was born knowing how to water ski. Right? That's a fair assumption. The first time you ever tried water skiing, you swallowed a lot of lake. And that's not because you were like a bad person. It's not because water skiing is bad. It's because you never did that before. And when you did it the very first time, you were terrible at it. Well, that's going to be true for any of your new offerings as well. The first time you roll it out, your engineers are new to it. They don't know how to find things. They don't know how to turn stuff on and off. They don't know how to communicate with confidence to a customer that this is a good thing. What we need to do is to roll this out in the opportunities of least potential risk and impact. And that's not just a technical operations question, that's a financial question. Do not experiment with your crown jewel customer relationships. When you roll new things out, please be on the cutting edge. Add new services. Be the one who introduces new capabilities to your customers rather than the other way around, because that feels bad. When your customer comes to you and says, "Hey, I've heard about this new capability. What do you guys think about it?" And your response is, I don't really know much about that. We aren't really paying attention to the new technology." That fleshing sound you hear is your credibility in that customer relationship. You need to be proactive. So you need to be constantly exploring and expanding. But if you just drop stuff into the production environment untested and you do it to your biggest customers, it's a really fast way to go out of business.
Let's also be fair to the business side of the equation. A lot of the decisions they make are somewhat influenced by, what the market is telling them and what customers are asking for. And I think it was only a few episodes ago where we talked about there is a fairly large share of MSSP customers or potential customers out there who are looking to simplify, deal with as few third-party partners as possible. So if one organization can provide the bulk of cyber services, that might be a leg up for those customers who are looking to keep things simple. Obviously there might be other customers out there that are still very willing to go piecemeal with point solutions or services to get to take more of a best of breed approach. What are you seeing in terms of demand overall? Is there still like a pretty good equal share of customers looking to take either one of those approaches, or is it more trending or pushing toward one way or the other, Ryan?
It's an excellent point to highlight, Bradley. If you go back a number of years to get a historically accurate trend, that is a continuous expansion, right? Like that is a phenomenon where customers want less complexity. They want to have a more trusted relationship with a single partner who can provide a bulk or a breadth of services. That is a continuous phenomenon, and it flies right in the face of, the slogan or the cliche, jack of all trades, master of none. That's easy to say, but customers still historically significantly prefer to deal with fewer providers, because if I have a need for 10 different security services and I get those from 10 different security service providers, I still have to have a full-time job in coordinating the activities of all of those service providers, even though they're the ones that are doing the work. I still have a full-time job, right? So economically, it's just not good for a customer to have that much breadth. And the finger pointing and it's not us, guys. You got to talk to the people that are managing part 12 instead of us, because that's where the fault is. That's a terrible inefficiency. And so it has spawned another cliche in our industry: one throat to choke, right? Like that is what every end user wants. Internally, I want one pane of glass where I can have one integrated view of all of my tools. Well, externally, my customers want the same thing. They want one point of control of as many of these things as they can. But if that's true historically, that is aggressively accelerating in 2023 because of the uncertainty in the economy, because of some of the expansion of threat vectors, and just the raw math on how many challenges we're dealing with in cybersecurity. There's a multiplying chaos right now on the customer side. They feel more attacked. They are confused about all the services they're getting. They need to get bulk purchasing with fewer providers so that they can negotiate supply chain deals, right? Go back to that old General Motors phenomenon of supply chain optimization. I need to have the ability to consolidate suppliers and then negotiate mass bargains with them. That's true historically. It is exaggerated aggressively this year. It forces us to expand. I guarantee it's going to force us to expand into things that we suck at. And that's not a knock on anybody's service capabilities. It's a functional reality of the human condition. We need to here's a good kind of a threshold for you, right? A metric that I was taught by a solution provider who got into the business of cybersecurity about 10 years ago, and they've been iterating and migrating and growing their stuff over the last 10 years. And their CEO said, the single most important metric that I track is the percentage of my revenue that comes from specific offers or technologies that I did not carry prior to 2 years ago, right? Think about that. If you're using technology and tools to provide cyber services that were invented 4 years ago, you're not doing a good job, right? That's just the world changed and it accelerated, and there's new stuff you have to keep up with. That refresh rate is accelerating to the point where things that we used to do 2 years ago are nigh on obsolete, right? So what you have to do is to drop that into your calculator and say, okay, so if I have 10 services today, that means that I need to be aware of in 2 years from now, how many of those 10 things need to be completely evolved or replaced, right? Like that gets to be some really compounding math. And what it says is always be testing and adopting new technologies, right? That old Glengarry Glen Ross advice, always be closing. Always be demoing, right? Always be deploying in your sandbox because the market's moving faster than we can.
All right, one last quick one before we wrap up, Ryan. You gave some great advice earlier about when introducing a new service and which clients you might want to target first for that offering. Do you also just have advice in general for finding more organic, natural opportunities for growth where you can better leverage some of the infrastructure that you already have, so that when you're ready to maybe move to making that next offering, you're better prepared because you're maybe not going completely out of your comfort zone. It's a natural extension maybe for what you're already doing. So what are some sort of easier growth? What's your advice for finding some easier growth opportunities versus like a big leap where you may end up being out of your depth?
Terrific question, because this is something we naturally get wrong as humans, right? New things feel exciting, they feel interesting, and I'm going to go after them for all the upside and opportunity. But when I do a new service to a new type of customer, it is the least repeatable, most chaotic thing that I will ever do. Anything that is completely brand new increases the risk of failure just based on raw inexperience and mistakes. What we need to do is to limit the risk as much as possible. I see it in 4 levels of newness, right? There are new services that we could provide. There are new tools that we could use to provide those services. There are new customers that we could go after, and there are new market segments that we could go after, right? That is an increasing level of complexity. As you add a new service, and I have sold previously to law firms and accounting firms, and now I'm going to go provide these services to hospitals. Okay, that sounds lucrative. That sounds like a really, really good idea. It also sounds like I'm about to fail really fast because I don't know that new industry, and I don't know the new service, and I don't know the new tools, right? You have to be able to stack that. new services, new tools, new customers, new industries. What we have to do is pick one at a time, right? Either take the existing stuff that I already do and don't change anything and go for new logo customers within the same verticals, within the same kinds of relationship dynamics, geographies, sizes, etc. Go after the same people with that. Or if I'm going to bring in a new tool, do not go to a new subset or a new vertical segment for that. You have to control for those four factors. Never change more than one at a time, or you will introduce so many variables that you are guessing. And that's not a very professional way to roll out a new service. All right, so that is the amount of time we have available to provide you with advice on that particular topic. What are your thoughts? What kinds of questions do you have? Are you going broad? Are you staying specialized? And what are the best practices? Please share your thoughts with us, Cyber for Hire at cyberriskalliance.com, or you can visit our show page, drop in a comment there. We would love to hear back from you guys on this. In the meantime, we're going to shift over to our next segment in today's conversation, which is a segment that we like to refer to as Dear Cyber for Hire. Now, Dear Cyber for Hire is an opportunity for us to provide a little bit of relationship advice to our listeners on the dynamics of being an MSSP or an end user of an MSSP and making sure that everybody just gets along. So the letter that we're going to share with you here, this is it is anonymized to protect the innocent, but the issue at hand is absolutely a real challenge that service providers deal with in the real world. So Bradley, give us the context. What are we dealing with in today's relationship challenges?
All right. Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Well, we're back again with even more juicy MSSP melodrama, and this one comes from the client side of the relationship. So, fellas, cue the music. Dear Cyber for Hire, someone call an exorcist. My significant other has been possessed. Well, maybe not so much possessed as acquired in a mergers and acquisitions deal with a larger MSSP. But that's still really scary. After all, now I'm afraid that the team I've been comfortable dealing with at my specialized MSSP service will start to become mere puppets, pod people victims manipulated by a higher power, forced to spout the new company line. I'm already hearing rumors and rumblings of changes, new policies, new pricing structures, new philosophies, new faces. Will the MSSP I've gotten to know these last few years remain the one I grew to love? Or will they slowly, insidiously, be changed from the inside? Frighteningly yours, anguished and angsty over acquisition adversity in Alexandria. Ryan, this could really be its own big idea segment, and maybe we'll do this in the future. But if you're an MSSP that's taken over a known and beloved entity, is it in your best interest to let them continue to operate with some level of autonomy, let them keep what's already working so customers maintain a sense of continuity? Or are there inevitably going to be changes that you're going to have to help your newly acquired customers get used to?
See, this is not only a real topic that we have to deal with in the industry, it is such a popular topic that over on our sister website publication, Channel E2E, it is one of the standing areas of curriculum, right? We are always publishing new updates about acquisitions and sometimes from private equity, sometimes from other MSPs, et cetera. It happens. It happens all the time. It's going to happen more often as the industry scales and as the economy gets a little bit more uncertain. We're going to deal with this all the time. In the letter you teed up, you asked what I think is the absolute heart of the issue. Will the MSP I've gotten to know over the last few years remain the same, or will they slowly be changed? The answer is they will absolutely change. I've been involved in very many M&As. I do due diligence for acquirers, and I do due diligence for those being acquired. And I can absolutely tell you, I've heard the language. I can hear it in my ears right now. We're going to let you continue to operate as an autonomous unit. Nothing is going to change. Your customers will still love you. Absolutely nothing is going to change. And I will try very hard not to curse when I say, that's not true. That always is not true. Why would somebody acquire another company? Expansion and coverage of market opportunity, expansion of portfolio and capabilities, expansion of economic opportunity internally or externally. Externally, that means I can sell more stuff to more people and I can generate more revenue. Internally, I get economies of scale and I can eliminate redundancies. I will tell you flat out, there is not an M&A anywhere in and by the way, it's not true just in the MSP world. This is a tale as old as time for the folks who deal in the M&A business in every single industry. There has never been an M&A that happened without a rationalization of cost efficiencies, right? It absolutely will happen. They will either change your people, they will change your processes, they will change your prices, they will change your billing, they will change your location, they'll change your logo, they will do a bunch of stuff. Think about it this way. A merger or acquisition is simultaneously, potentially, the very best thing that could ever happen to an MSP. New money, new resources, new opportunities. It could be the very best thing. But it is also simultaneously and equally, potentially, the very worst thing that could ever happen to you because it disrupts current relationships, it interrupts the flow of trust, and it causes complexity in operations that did not used to be there. You would think, listening to me, that I am not a fan of mergers and acquisitions in a service provider world. Absolutely, positively the opposite. I think that is a phenomenon that is not only going to naturally occur in our industry, I think it is a good thing. Consolidation leads to improvement of capabilities, which means we can deliver better services to our customers, which means that we ought to be in a better position, individually and collectively. I believe small businesses exist for a reason. I believe that as we scale, if we're good at it, it's an indication of the market saying, we like what you do, let's do more of that, right? I think it's a thing that we ought to be participating in, but I'm just coming with the wide open eyes to say, it's going to be disruptive, it's going to be difficult, and if you do not acknowledge that, you're going to get some bad surprises down the stream. But if you do acknowledge it, you can figure out how to do this systematically with as little disruption as possible. It begins with an inside conversation with your acquirer, with your operations people, everything that is going on so that you can plan ahead. And then it's communication to your end user to ensure they know what's going to happen and how it will impact them and what we're doing to mitigate the disruption. And it deals with emergency communications because, to borrow the old Mike Tyson thing, everybody's got a plan in their M&A until they actually get punched in the face by a customer who says, wait a minute, I don't get to talk to my agent anymore? What? I want to cancel my service because that was the trusted person I've known forever. I'm out of here if you don't let me keep my people, etc. Right? Like that's one of 50 things that could be changed. This is a very hot topic. We will absolutely come back to it because we would not dedicate nearly so much editorial bandwidth to this if it was not a driving phenomena in our industry. We need to be very aware of how to do it correctly. The short answer is, no, it will disrupt your operations, and there will be a time that it pisses off your customers. Let's figure out how to minimize that.
All right. Very, very sage advice, Ryan. As always, another relationship saved. Hopefully, our listeners have learned from this and don't make the same mistake. And remember, if you've been struggling with your managed security services relationship, whether you're the user or the provider, we want to hear from you. So please write to us at cyberforhire@cyberriskalliance.com, and we might use your letter in a future episode. All right. Well, as any security practitioner can tell you, there's no shortage of headlines filling up the cyber news feeds every single day. And so we wanted to highlight a few items that we curated just for you in this lightning round that we call the security detail. Headline number one goes to you, Ryan. 1/3 of organizations admit they have covered up a data breach.
See, I hope you, I, and everybody listening in across the industry should collectively put our faces in our hands and shake our heads and go, oh my God, I cannot believe that this is happening. And yet, you'll notice on the link that we are sharing in the show notes here, this did not come from a technology publication. This came from our friends over at VentureBeat. In other words, this is the business and the funding side of the house that is saying, I want to dress up my business and make it acquirable. I want to be interesting to investors. And one of the least interesting things to somebody who is about to invest in my business is if I have recently been the victim of a cyber attack, significant, insignificant, anywhere on the spectrum. If I'm vulnerable, that's new risk, and I'm not sure I want to deal with that in my business. It's happening. The thing that makes me want to scream is that the percentage of companies where senior execs have come to the IT or the cyber team and said, yo, you need to keep that on the down low. I don't want to, we shouldn't disclose anything about that. That number's even higher than a third. But it's a third who admit that they got so much pressure that they actually covered it up. Oh my God. That might be the end of the world. We all need to come back and deal with this one again. But please read this article, and then let's go have a friendly adult conversation with our customers to just see, hey, we're not accusing you of anything. Let's just put this out there and see how you react. Anyway, let's move on to our next headline. Nearly half of ex-employees admit to accessing their former employer's job systems and technologies. Bradley, what do we need to know?
Yeah, we seem to have a lot of people fessing up this week to some naughty deeds. But 47% of 1,000 U.S. workers who were recently surveyed by Password Manager copped to using credentials affiliated with a former employer even after leaving the company, while 10% admitted they did so with the actual intent to disrupt company activities. So this includes accessing accounts such as email, software, and digital tools related to their past job. Employee lifecycle management is key here. When they leave, disable their personal passwords. If there are shared passwords, then change them. Indeed, 44% of respondents said it was through a shared credential that they were still able to gain access. All right, headline number 3, back to you, Ryan. Law firm Proskauer Rose exposed their clients' confidential M&A data. Speaking of M&As.
See, earlier we were talking about breadth or specialization in terms of the services that we offer. There's a flip side to that conversation around breadth or specialization in terms of the customer segments that we go after. Should you address any end user across any vertical industry segment, or should you specialize in particular verticals? I'm just going to drop a piece of advice here that says if you have any interest at all in servicing the legal services vertical, please make a phone call to every lawyer's office that you can possibly access and share with them this information. And let's just do some due diligence and see what's going on, right? The details of this situation, and it's not cool, right? This is a very large law firm that found that there was an exposed data set of nearly 184,000 files that had been out there literally for 6 months. We're not talking like, the email you send to your friends when you say, you guys want to get together on Friday after work. We're not talking about hey, that order needs to be processed. Can you tell me what the status of it is? We're talking the things that you would disclose to your law firm in an M&A acquisition or a venture capital funding acquisition situation so that you can tell your banker or a VC or a PE or somebody like that, you should give us tens, potentially hundreds of millions of your dollars. Can you possibly imagine a more intimate set of personally identifiable information for the people or for the organization? Wow. This one made my ears ring a little bit. And we're not talking about a small firm that doesn't have an IT team, that doesn't have an appropriate sense of seriousness about these things. This was a very significant firm that does very good business in this industry segment. And this was just a misconfiguration. It was just it was a thing. Holy cow. Let's go back and talk to all of our friends and let's talk about liability in legal terms with those who are customers in the legal services vertical. Anyway, next one. Headline number 4, IAM adopters identify the biggest trouble spots that customers deal with. What do we need to know here, Bradley?
So a survey of security and IT pros conducted by Cyber Risk Alliance found that nearly all of them, 98%, have implemented or are considering an IAM strategy, but there are still some roadblocks in the way of a smooth implementation. 4 in 10 respondents named Shadow IT and unaffordable IAM products as the top expected challenges, while about a third said that strained budget resources and adopting a zero trust architecture were the biggest issues. As reported by SC Media's Steve Zurier, Cyber Risk Alliance has made several IAM recommendations to security professionals, which are develop an identity and access management game plan that maps IAM policies back to business requirements, keep the user experience a top priority, focus on iteration, implementing IAM in 1 or 2 projects at a time rather than trying to solve everything at once, make identity the perimeter based on zero trust principles, and finally, consider allying with an IAM provider. Even more information on this research is available through subscribing to, registering, and watching the latest SC Media e-summit on identity and access management, which is available to watch on demand. And
that is, by the way, just a quick observation, massive need and opportunity in the marketplace. It's one of those where people think, that was one of the foundation building blocks, right? We solved that. No, we didn't. And as you can tell from our earlier conversation with Mike Smith and the news items we've been going through, identity and access management is the prerequisite for literally everything else that we do, whether it's ongoing operations or big events. That we've not solved that problem yet. So thank you for bringing that one up.
Oh, you're quite welcome. And finally, drum roll, please. It's time for our irrelevant news item of the week. This is a real news pitch that Ryan or I have received in our inboxes for reasons that are entirely inexplicable to us. Are you ready, Ryan?
I am ready, always ready for these.
All right. Well, it goes a little something like this. HBO's hit TV show Succession has captivated audiences worldwide. One of the reasons is the show's stunning filming locations. Fans are flocking to these gorgeous spots to capture a piece of the show's glamour. And researchers from betpack.com have taken a look at Instagram hashtags and uncovered the top 10 most Instagrammed Succession filming locations. Top on the list is not too far away from me, Ryan. It's Montauk on the southern fork of Long Island. Researchers found over 1,100,000 Instagram hashtags related to this location. Next came, and I may butcher this pronunciation, Mor og Romsdal from Norway, then back to Long Island in Salutation Manor in Glen Cove, Long Island, followed by the Plaza in New York was number 4. Now, I don't personally watch Succession. I need to binge the whole thing. I know it's great. 1 million people have told me to watch it. Here's my question to you. Some folks are really into the whole TV movie location tourism thing. Like the last 2 big trips that I did, Ireland and Iceland, everywhere you go, you're like, Game of Thrones filmed here, Game of Thrones filmed there. What's the geekiest filming location you ever visited where you were just like, I have to get a picture of this. Maybe I'll even, reenact the scene in video.
See, now you have tapped into a deep vein of who I am as a human. I am, in my friend and family circles, not famous. I'm infamous for poking people in the middle of a movie and going, we've been there. That's a place where we've been. Or on the vice versa side of that, when we arrive at a location going, oh, this is the place, this is where it was, right? I find it to be personally fascinating when you can stand where things happened. I will tell you, the geekiest that I have ever done is Doune Castle in Scotland. Doune Castle is one of the castles in the lately concluded Dragon television series. There's multiple of them that have gone on there. I won't pick out any one of them if you happen to have a favorite, but more than one has been filmed there. It was included in Outlander, the television show on Stars that is about the Scottish time travel. It is best known, best appreciated as the sole and exclusive filming location for the entirety of the movie Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, that's funny.
I can tell you, I stood in the window in the room where, you know the scene, right? Every one of us can recite it right off. Everything that you see before you will one day be yours, to which the son replies, but I don't want it. I stood in that window and I said that line, and we videotaped that. And it was one of the fulfilling experiences of my life. I completely empathize with the story that you are highlighting.
See, that's funny. A castle is actually on my list too. One of the coolest places I'd say that I've been in that regard was Casa Loma in Toronto, this castle-style mansion and garden in the middle of the city that's been the location for actually close to like 100 movies, but most notably Scott Pilgrim and also X-Men. It provided a lot of the exterior and interior locations of the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters.
Yes.
And then, of course, I've done the one too, as a million people have done, right? The old, Rocky Balboa running up the steps of the Philadelphia Museum of Art. That's like
and
one
see,
that like
this
everybody does.
This is why we can understand the phenomena that is being promoted around this story. It is, I believe, central to the human condition to want to have shared experiences. This is just a modern mass media multiplication of that phenomenon. When you saw the movie I saw, that's a connection. When I stood in the place where the movie was filmed and you know that I was there, believe me, I believe it's at the root of part of our social animal instincts in modern society. I will tell you, because you've not seen Succession, I have devoured Succession, and it is phenomenal. It motivates me to want to go to Montauk. It motivates me to want to go to many places in southeastern Long Island. There's some very cool places out there. Nothing that it did was more compelling than making me want to go visit Lake Como in Italy, because there was a scene in there that was visually absolutely mind-blowing, and it makes us want to start making sure our passports are renewed and that we can find a time to get to Italy when the weather is good and the crowds are not too bad. So we're looking for a sweet spot.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for not sharing any spoilers so that I can still watch and enjoy. And, speaking of movies and TV shows, we've reached the end credits for this particular episode, number 17 of Cyber for Hire. But do not despair, because we'll be back again soon for episode number 18. Meanwhile, feel free to check out even more cybersecurity podcast content on the SC Media, MSSP Alert, and Channel E2E websites. Until next time, I'm Bradley Barth.
And I am Ryan Morris. Please reach out to us via our show page or our email address at cyberforhire@cyberriskalliance.com and share your comments, questions, feedback of any kind on the conversations we've been having about the business of cybersecurity. And we will be glad to keep this conversation going on the next episode of Cyber for Hire, your inside source for cyber outsourcing.